butterflies there to get back to his feet. Robert Whiteford has shown some of the most fearsome ground and pound I've ever seen in the flesh.
I'm not here to fuck about.
Robert Whiteford is Scotland's first UFC fighter. He took time out to speak to us about his childhood, how he got into mixed martial arts, and his preparation for UFC Glasgow on July 18th.
When I was 16, I got into the same shit as any normal 16-year-old would. Going out drinking, girls, stealing cars at the time, you know, it was just going down the wrong road.
I knew it was 28 years now, coming up on. We grew up, well, we met in Falkirk, like we were out playing football or something, or at school and that. And we just became friends and that, and it just turned out that they stayed 2 doors down from where I was staying.
For Falkirk, the kid was crazy, you know. Streets were rough. And there wasn't a day I walked in Falkirk Street without fighting, you know. It's probably, even though you knew everybody, you were still fighting. If it was your friends, you were fighting with them. If it wasn't, you were fighting with other people. So it's pretty rough in Falkirk, you know, but that's the way you were brought up in Falkirk. You either could sink or swim. Family to me wasn't really important because as a kid, if nobody knows, I was put in a children's home when I was a kid, so family to me isn't a huge part. More family now is my friends, you know, that's the people I choose to have in my life just now. That's the people I refer to as my family, you know.
He's no change to me, to be honest, like, but a lot of other people in that, he put a dig in and says he's up his own arse, like, but it's not changed much in that, to be honest. I always reckon he's got to be successful in that. He's too strong-minded. You know what I mean? He doesn't allow himself to get beat very easily like
that. I suppose what made the change for me is when I was 17 and I started the local judo club. And it kind of gave me a direction in life. You know, I didn't really want to go out the weekend and drink. I'd rather be in the mat, socialising with my friends, competing on the Saturday rather than waking up with a hangover and stuff. So it was combat sports that kind of changed my life.
First met Robert way back when we used to train at Josh Garvin's. Robert would probably been carrying maybe, 80 kilos at the time. I think he walks about that way anyway, so he was just a primed machine. His judo level was way above a lot of the guys at the club. He was fantastic, great ability. He's just superb. His groundwork, his stand-up, and he was just consistent, constantly would just fight you and fight you and fight you and wouldn't stop.
Obviously when I started it was fucking terrible, you know, the same as anybody else. I took my ass kickings like every other person that was on the mat, and by time goes through, the more dedication, the more time you spend, because I hate getting beat at anything, you know, it ended up me giving the ass kickings out. So as anybody, it's tough at the beginning, but if you see it to the end, you know, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you're the one that ends up coming out on top. I'm a born fighter, you know, I grew up in the streets of Falkirk, West Lothian. If you couldn't play football and you couldn't fight, it was one of those things you had to do. So I was fighting from an early age. I was lucky I could do both. I could fight and I could play football. Then when I grew up and you get into martial arts, you see people that are into martial arts and they're a student, you know, they've been taught how to fight, whereas I knew how to fight. I just had to learn discipline, which was judo at the time. That's the chosen field I went into. So I could already fight, I just had to put the discipline in.
Shows little emotion, never ever did. He wasn't an emotional guy. Even when we went to the club, he would bring some of the guys through for Fauldhouse, Wal T and Kevin Brooks and stuff like that. But Robert was quite always into himself, so he never ever showed a lot of emotion. You know, I never ever see him. The only emotion that I ever saw him would have been when he was fighting, when he was in his focus. That was the only emotion that you saw. There was never a soft side.
You know, I was training with the Scottish national squad. As much as the professional athletes at the time, I was there as much as them, if not more at the time. it's just dedicating myself to the sport. Again, it was keeping me out of trouble. It gave me a focus in life and the opportunity arose for me to represent Scotland in the Commonwealth Games over in Derry, Ireland. And I jumped off it with both hands, and I was fortunate enough to come away with a bronze medal. At the time it felt great, but it's the same as saying it's a short high and then you're back to reality. It was an accomplishment at the time, but then after that was done, it was just on to the next one. I mean, again, I'm the first person from Scotland to get signed from the UFC, but I don't see it as a big deal, it's just another one of those things. I was happy being one of the fighters in Scotland, and I wanted to be the best in Scotland, and then I accomplished that, and then I got signed to the UFC, and then it was going abroad and training American top team, training in Sweden at All Stars. I was always just wanting to better myself. It was never about just getting somewhere and being happy with that. I always just wanted to try and better myself every time.
My name's Kevin Brooks. I'm a long-term training partner of Robert Whiteford. I'm training with him for about 8 years now. Some people call me his apprentice. He calls me his apprentice. I just like to see myself as his training partner. I don't see there being a difference. If anything, maybe the difference would be maybe he's more ambitious. He's got more of a drive towards his training. Obviously, he's made it to the UFC. The hard thing is staying in the UFC now. So I think he's certainly up to his game anyway. But he knows that himself, that he needs to up his game to stay at the level with these boys. So training, I mean, since day one, the training's always been difficult with Robert. He pushes you further than most people would push you. But training, he trains smarter. Now he trains a lot smarter. Whereas before, we were hitting bags, we were lifting heavy weights, we were doing mostly the old school boxing training, running long miles, stuff like that. Now he's much smarter with the training, we're more specific to certain aspects of the game. He's certainly picked up the wrestling. For me, my wrestling's came on tremendous. Since he's been away in America, he comes back, he shows me new stuff, and it helps my game, excel. One of the highlights in my life is being able to stand beside Robert when he's in the UFC, going to all these all these photo shoots and stuff like that. It's tremendous for me. It gives me an insight to see, what I can, if I set my mind to it, I could be there as well.
The boxing coach is Colin McNeil from Fawlthouse. He was a Commonwealth medalist, professional boxer as well. Trains at Fawlthouse Boxing Amateur Club. Trained with Colin for a number of years. It doesn't not so much boxing, but I've always been out running with him. I've always been in his company. I've been up at the boxing gym watching him train. He's always been a part of my life basically in training. And it's just recently I've tapped into his knowledge and understanding since I picked up my injury to get better at boxing and the fundamentals of boxing. So I train with Colin McNeil every day now.
I try to keep things not to keep things less than watched MMA and that. I try and keep Roberts just for short, explosive punches. And doesn't even fancy don't get me wrong, hundreds of jabs.
Fight ending punches.
Just whenever something we throw a punch to Robert, I grab it. As soon as he punches, he just punches with him. And his technique's going to be better than ours.
Do the basics right.
Do the basics right, that's it. Just keep the basics right. That's all we're doing. Just do the basics, keep them simple, not try to get too fancy. Definitely how to get Robert's footwork better.
It means an athlete learning how to box second to none. He had experience as a professional boxer before. So when we come to training, it's not a case of getting in here talking crap for 10 minutes. It's straight down to work. Caleb set the quote maybe an hour, you could still be working an hour and 5 minutes later. He doesn't care for the time. He doesn't care for the money. He's just there to get him better and concentrate on the session itself. So when I'm with Caleb for that hour and a half, his concentration is 100% focused on me getting better.
So, which is the good thing about Rab is he listens to everything I say. It doesn't mind me moaning. It doesn't mean if we say, look, we'll do it again, repetition, the same punch over and over again. It doesn't mind it, he just does it. And then until he gets it right, he sees why we do it. And that's what Rab's good thing about Rab, because he knows what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, the same thing over again. Because when he does do it right, he says to me, I get it, and he knows it.
This is the thing working with people. I know that it's like having somebody in your corner. You're never going to take your next door neighbour into a fight with you in your corner because you've got no respect for him. He's never done anything you've done. Whereas I know people who've been in the shoes I've been in fought in the trenches the same as I'm been into. So it's much respect for Pele as well because I know he's been there and done it. You know, so I listen to everybody they've got to say. It's not just a case of him saying it and I'm thinking, oh, you don't really know what you're talking about. Pele's been there and done it. I've got the t-shirt. So again, I was out for a year with injury. You know, it was just unfortunate. I had a bad year last year, but I didn't stop training. You know, people when they seem to get injured, they seem to think, oh, there's nothing I can do. Right, I'll stop training until I get better or until I get a fight. I just trained around it. You know, I hurt my back, but it didn't stop me boxing. I just couldn't wrestle. I couldn't do jiu-jitsu. I couldn't do the grappling side of it. So from getting injured and injuring my back, it's made me a better fighter. It's given me more time to work on my boxing. My stand-up games it's come up leaps and bounds. So it was a blessing in disguise. You know, I'm a better fighter now than I was last year when I got injured.
David Jenkins, I own and run Sports Therapy Scotland, where we do physiotherapy, sports therapy, sports massage. Been looking after Robert for several years now, from his judo days with Josh Gavin and recently the UFC. So what happens is if Robert sustains an injury at UFC or in training, he'll come to me, I'll assess the injury, classify it, and then we look at the rehabilitation and treatment and then liaise with his coaches about what they should and shouldn't do at each stage of his rehab. In martial arts, which I'm seeing a lot of here with Robert, it's important to get him in as early as possible following injury again and ensuring that it doesn't get any worse, because we have to get him back training and competing as quick as possible.
I'm sure when I go to the Hydro and see it, you know, it's going to bring it home, the huge event that the UFC is going to be, you know. Even though it's going to be empty, there's not going to be people in there, but I'm sure that the whole arena capture the atmosphere, you know.
How does it feel to be here?
It feels tremendous. This is going to be a special night, you know what I mean? It's feels like I'm ready to fight tomorrow night. I could go there now.
Yeah.
I could go right now, literally go right now.
Yeah.
And it'll be even better when it's fully 11,000 Scottish fans.
Yeah. And what do you think it's going to be like in comparison to Dallas and places like that you've fought before?
I think you could take 1,000 Scottish fans and they'd make more noise than 18,000 Americans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can only imagine it's going to be about 11,000 of them. The world's in for a treat in the UFC as well. We thought maybe Ireland was loud and London's been loud, but I can guarantee when 11,000 jocks are in here, it's going to be nuts. I think just another problem back then, wait to see July the 18th, I'm going to take the roof off it. You know what I mean?
Dana White, obviously, he absolutely loves anybody who's really patriotic and stuff as well. Do you think that sort of affected you getting into the UFC?
I think they really didn't have a choice, you know what I mean? I was batting that many doors down, and they had to take notice eventually rather than later, sooner rather than later.
What do you think was the sort of pinnacle fight in your pro game pre-UFC?
Probably in Glasgow when I knocked out Martin Svensson.
Yeah.
He was number 3 in Europe at the time and I was an unknown, so it was perfect, you know. The scene was set for me to really stamp my name on the European scene that night, and 38 seconds later I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't have played it any better.
Yeah. I was actually at that fight and I was just outside the cage the whole time, and it was just absolutely unbelievable, the atmosphere when you came out in the full judo gear.
Yeah.
And everybody was going crazy. How fast was the stoppage?
38 seconds.
38
It
seconds.
could have been stopped well before that, you know. I reckon it could have been out there in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It was just lucky that I'm still not punching on the day, or
Yeah.
I still would be. You know what I mean? The referee saved his life that night.
Well, he was tipped at the time to sort of be
He was
the next featherweight UFC, wasn't he?
He was the big thing there.
Yeah.
And he probably thought he was the big thing going into that
Yeah.
night. And 6'2", who would blame him thinking he was the big thing? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But I could just tell he didn't want to fight for the day the weigh in.
Yeah.
I could just tell looking in his eyes. You can tell a lot for a man when you see him you weigh in. I could just tell he was more a martial artist rather than a fighter.
Yeah.
And especially when coming to Glasgow, you know, there was no Swedish guy going to beat me that night.
Yeah. Aye, if you were going to get him up against the cage, then he just had no chance.
And that's where it finished. That's where his downfall came. The cage actually held him up twice for being knocked out. He was unconscious in the cage. So the cage done him favours that night as well, and the referee. The only favour nobody done him was me.
Right, so you come from a judo background, but you've got the nickname for the Hammer. So how did that come about?
One of my coaches at the Grip House, James Dillon, we were doing ground and pound drills on the bag, and I was pounding the bag like a sledgehammer. So that's how that came about.
Yeah.
And then later, if anybody's wanted to do a wee bit of history research, when I fought David Galbraith on top, I KO'd him from ground and pound. He was on oxygen for 4-6 minutes.
Right.
So that really cemented my name after that.
How many of your fights were stoppages then?
I couldn't actually tell you. I couldn't remember what I was doing yesterday, never mind
No?
how many fights my stoppages have been, but I think maybe 7 stoppages, 3 decisions. And really the other 2 decisions I could have stopped the guys easy, but at that point I wasn't really interested
Just playing
in
with
fighting.
them,
I was just
obviously.
playing with them. I wasn't really interested in fighting at that time, as my manager knew at the time. He'd actually speak me into fighting because I said I was finished with it.
Yeah.
So those decisions, I just wasn't really interested. If you took them 3 fights ago, the guys would have been stopped in record time.
Why did you want to get out of it?
Just I felt I wasn't getting the breaks. The politics were coming into play too much.
Yeah.
I was doing the business in the cage, but backstage, the important work wasn't getting done or wasn't getting took care of. As people know that the MMA is a business now, not just what you do in the cage. It's your overall brand.
Yeah.
And that bit was just failing me at the time, so I was getting a wee bit upset with it at the time. But thank God I persevered with it. You know, I'm sitting here in the Hydro ready to walk into a UFC event July 18th, which will be making history again.
Yeah, because I remember you used to come into the shop and see me, and you would always be talking about how I would say, oh, if you get into the UFC, and you're like, when I get into the UFC, Neil, and it's quite a cool sort of example of visualization. You sort of had a dream, and you just accepted that was the only way it was going to be.
Because I knew at the time, if it was down to me and it was left to me doing what I had to do, there was no going to stop me. I was going to do whatever it took.
Yeah.
But towards the tail end of my fighting in the local scene, it was more to do with politics and the business side of it. It was letting me down. But initially in the start, I knew right away I was going to be in the UFC, and I told guys like you that every time I saw them.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of time, you know, because I knew what I was doing in the cage. I knew what I was capable of.
Yeah.
And I knew that that's what people wanted to see.
Yeah. Well, there was quite a lot of stuff on social media that sort of probably grabbed the attention of the UFC as well. There was a lot of petitions and different pages were getting made by people saying Robert Whiteford needs to be in the UFC, and they all took off. Do you think that had a part to play?
Oh, huge. You know, I'm always grateful for what the public did for me. Again, that's the business side of it. If it doesn't really matter what you're doing inside the octagon, if you're knocking guys out in 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then going home and nobody's hearing from you again, then that's not what they're interested in. The fact that then the public took it upon themselves to let the UFC brass know that there was a guy from Scotland capable of fighting on their stage, it was a tremendous feeling. And I knew then, once I got the public on my side, especially the Scottish community, that it was only going to be a matter of time.
Yeah. And then when you fought Daniel Pineda in your second UFC fight, that was your first UFC win.
Yeah. Basically my first UFC fight as well. You know, look at that fight I took on Manchester against Jimmy Hettis. I was looking at the bigger picture, you know. At 5 days notice. Who the fuck's going to fight in 5 days notice? Never mind, I was sitting in a Chinese buffet stuff in my face. £30 to cut. So that fight's erased from my memory, if you'd like to put it in. So really, when I fought in Texas, against a Texan in front of 18,000 Texans
Yeah.
in his backyard. That was my debut, you know, and it still didn't faze me. I was walking in there and I really couldn't care less when I knew inside myself what I was capable of, and I was just being quietly confident that I was going to take the win that night.
Yeah. I remember you said to me just after it that you would have taken a fight against a heavyweight if the contract was up for grabs, which is a really cool thing to think about as well.
Yeah. Probably a wee bit stupid as well. I mean, you've seen the size of those monsters in there. That's the lengths I was wanting to go to. You know, I wasn't one of these guys that go an easy road there.
Yeah.
I just had to take the punches and roll with them.
Yeah.
And lucky enough, I got another opportunity from the USC, which I always knew was going to happen anyway, and I knew that would have been my time to show them what I was capable of. And even then, I played the fight safe. You know, I just beat the guy in every area. Never really took any chances. Even though I did hit him with 2 head kicks, it would have dropped the bill. He was still coming at me, and then right then I knew that was the difference between fighting in the local scene and fighting against top world level athletes in the UFC. You know, and the guy never took a backward step, and hit me with some big shots. And previous fights to that, if I'd hit any of those guys, they would have been kind of finished with them.
Yeah.
But then again, when I come to Glasgow, July 18th, it's going to be something more special. You know, I don't need to play it safe. I don't need to watch my P's and Q's in there. I've got 11,000 people. I can say what the fuck I want, do what I want, and they're going to be on my side. So I'll be looking forward to getting back to my old fighting style, you know, and putting these guys away early.
Where will your fight camp be?
As ever, it's going to be in Scotland at the Grip House and in Florida, American Top Team. This time of the show being in Scotland, I'll hopefully come back from Florida a little bit early and finish my camp at the Grip House. Start at America and finish it here.
Yeah.
So that's the plan for that.
This will be like walking into a coliseum here. 11,000 Scottish fans. I can just feel the atmosphere there now. It'll be tremendous. I can only imagine the noise they're going to make. Fought all over the world and trained all over the world. It'll be great to eventually fight here with some home support. 11,000 Scottish. Yeah, it'll be a sea of blue and white here. Tartan Army. It's going to be great.